All right. Well, I'm here with Daniel of Loft Studios. And just for like a little bit of background for anybody listening, uh, I think the first time I became really aware of you in a big sense was when you entered the Stories of Survival 3044 contest. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the first time I think you actually I wouldn't know, but that was the first time you ever had any communication with me. You never commented on anything. So as far as I know, yeah, that was the first.
Yeah, and that's where you submitted the video, "The Legend of the Forgotten Chandler," which I think took first place, right? I should,
Yeah, it did. That was crazy. Me and my brother were watching the results video and we were like, there's no way. Because we were seeing those other entries, we were like, oh man, this is tough. But we were blown away. Like that was really cool.
yeah,
I was really excited about that.
that whole contest was incredibly exciting to me. There was a lot of really good entries, but
Yeah, that was a great contest idea. I love it when people have actual themes. Like I remember I was entering a lot of contests during that time, and when I found yours, I was excited because I'm like, hey, this is actually a cool theme, you know? Like you have this story world, you got to create something that fits in it. I love contest of a theme because most contests are always like do whatever, which doesn't
hmm.
really work. But I was excited to see that. So that's a really cool contest idea.
Yeah, and I mean, you really came to bat for it, like, and that's why your video did so well. Is it immersed itself in the lore, in the vibe of the Void War, and it was just, and of course, the animation itself was so potent, and that's I think one of the things that stands out to me about your animations is they have a very distinct style, and they have a very they just have this incredible dynamism. You're not afraid of camera movement. You're not afraid of like exaggerated motion. And I think I'm sensitive to that because I am afraid of it in some ways. In some ways, my animation plays it really safe, where yours is really bold. Um, so,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more room for mistakes. And actually, I've toned down my camera movement because I can understand what you're saying. Like, I've become a little bit more afraid to do that kind of stuff as I, got better and I felt like that I kind of had to keep a certain quality. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of my camera movement has toned down because I was slowly growing. Like, you know what? I don't want to risk messing that up. Like
mhm.
there's a lot more room for mistakes with that kind of movement.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. And it is a balance I think you learn to strike as you grow as a filmmaker and as a storyteller because you recognize that motion is a storytelling tool. Emotion with the camera, motion with the characters, and maybe you use it more efficiently. But it's interesting what you said about what we say think about being careful because in some ways, if the camera is moving, there's more room for mistakes uh, because it's all a fluid motion. Where if you're trying to maintain the illusion that is perfectly still, the slightest mistake is noticeable.
Yeah, that is a good point. So there are two different dangers. One is it's hard to keep a consistent movement, and then at the end, if you don't like it, you can't undo the movement. Whereas if you have the camera still, if you bump it the slightest bit, you see it. But you have a little bit more breathing room if you have some camera movement. You can always cover up for that if you bump the camera or the character. Also, it does kind of smooth out the character's motions depending on what kind of movement shot you have because the camera's moving, like it's exactly what you said. It's a lot more noticeable if you do make a mistake.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what stop motion software do you use?
I am still on the OG stop motion studio app. So
Nice. Is that on
I
Mac or is that a PC thing?
that's a phone app. It's just an
Oh,
app.
no kidding. Dang.
Yeah, it's the app. I think most people use it or most beginners. I just never got off of it. It's like a $5 premium. You can get it free, or you can pay $5 for a few extra features. I just bought it since it was so cheap. But I've been using that thing since day one. Like it's taken me a long way, although there are a lot of problems with it. I mean, it's a solid app, but I'm surprised I'm still using it. I really want to get Dragon Frame because that what you use?
It is, yeah. I've had Dragon Frame since I think 2019 is when I got it for the first time. Um, and it's phenomenal and it's
It's like the industry standard, right?
It is, yeah, and it's one of those industry standards that's um it's accessible to people with a little bit of money. Like, I mean, it's a couple $100 and some change. So it's not cheap, but it is not out of reach.
Yeah,
So
I like how it is a one-time purchase thing. Like there's so many things that you have to pay monthly, but even though $200 isn't cheap, it's better than you got the program. You have it forever. So
exactly.
that's always nice.
Yeah, spread that out over a decade of like stop motion filmmaking, and yeah, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And I will say, you make it work with with your stop motion studio because all of your effects are practical and in camera,
Yeah.
or in scene, which is that also is remarkable to me. Like the amount of uh, variety of effects that you were able to achieve with paper and flashlights.
Yeah, so I originally started doing that because of the practicality of it. Like in my mind, that was the easiest way to do it. And it's really funny because I always thought, like, if you go back to the beginning animations, they are very basic. Like I have a drawer full of effects right here, and they're super basic. But yeah, so they were just easy for me because I didn't know how to do digital effects. So but then it kind of morphed into a style, you know, like I like the way it looked for example, there was one of the shots I did for the Lego Movie Rebuilt was all the robots opening fire, and that would have been some place where practical effects aren't very practical because you got a whole army of robots that are shooting, but like it would be so much easier to get a digital effect and then just duplicate that all across everything.
Mhm,
But I just like the style of having everything in camera.
mhm.
And so I did the whole scene. I got two flashlights and a bunch of skewers for the lasers and did the whole shot with that. And I can get to a certain point before I can loop it, but I think I like looped it once. But yeah, I just like the style of practical effects. So at this point, it's actually kind of funny because I'm starting to consider kind of blending them, like making a practical effect on a green screen and then using that as a digital effect. But I'm not sure if I want to do that because it's still that wouldn't really be in camera effects anymore, you know? Even though it's still the same like practical skewer or paper, it wouldn't be in camera. And I want to play with it. Like I want to see if that would look as good or if it would really be noticeable that it's not the same feel, you know?
Yeah, yeah. If you can maintain the style or stylistic integrity, but with maybe less work on the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something about practical effects that it just seems very authentic and true to the stop motion medium in general. Visual effects, you're like, yeah, I see the laser, but I know that that's superimposed on the image. And I mean, I use visual effects constantly, so I'm not bashing them by any means, but there is something that's very just refreshing about your content and your style, and seeing that kind of and I remember like in one of your tutorial videos, you say all my effects are in camera. And it was like I had in my mind, I think I knew that, but I hadn't really thought about it. And I was like, wow, this guy doesn't have to do any post editing. I mean, that's amazing, other than like cutting and sound design, of course.
Yeah.
But like it I don't know, it both saves you time and it looks cool. So um I dig it.
Awesome. I'm glad that that's how I started off, and I'm continuing to work with practical effects because a lot of people do comment about it, and I like that. You know, people do seem to like it. So I hope I can keep that up.
Yeah. I'm curious, just thinking about like the way you animate and this incredible, you have this real sense of like of comedy and timing and action, just hilarious action. And where did you learn how to animate? Because I see principles like, the 12 principles of animation, like squash and stretch and all these and arcs and all this. So I'm just curious about how you honed that craft.
That was pretty much 100% trial and error. Just,
Hmm.
doing it over and over and over again. I never watched like videos about how to do it. It was just, seeing what looks good, what doesn't. I mean, if you look at my original animations, they were not good. What's funny is I remember when I made those, I was so proud of them. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. And then I go back and watch them like, it's not as good as I once thought, but so yeah, it was basically just trial and error. So over time, it I don't know, yeah, like because I did eventually watch a video about the principles of animation because I kept hearing the phrase ease in and out, and I never knew
Oh
what
yeah.
that meant. But then when I learned what it meant, I'm like, hey, I do that. In fact, I overdo that sometimes.
Hmm.
That can look bad if you overdo it. But anyway, yeah. So just over time, learned trial and error.
Yeah. It's funny that what you say about ease in and ease out, because I remember I overdid it with easing when I was learning as well. And then it was like a slow dawning on me, or realization, maybe it was from watching tutorials, I can't quite remember, but how impactful it is. It's like you mean to tell me that in a scene where somebody's like punching someone else, or like a brick is falling, I can just do like 2 frames of it falling, or even 1 frame, and that's legal? And
Yeah,
you can, and like to really, I mean, sometimes if you have like almost an anime style intense impact, there's no frame. It's just like the thing is there, and what you see is the aftermath of it falling or hitting so
yeah.
hard. And it's
That
counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, exactly. You see people with beginner videos that'll have a bullet that'll have like 5 frames as it goes
Yeah.
across. And it's a really interesting concept. I did discover pretty early on that you could have dramatic movements, and I did that by watching Battle Axe's videos. Because when I first started stop motion, it was more of a mega construct. So Battle Axe is one of the biggest mega constructs animators. He has some of the coolest fight scenes, and I noticed how like when he would wind up for a punch, it would be here and then here, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's 2 frames punch, and that was crazy to me. And even at that point, I thought I had it down. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can take out frames. But it wasn't until I started animating for the Lego Movie Rebuilt that I started studying the Lego Movie, and I was blown away at some of the movements they have in the movie. Like it's just what you're saying. It's like it's here and then way over there. It's like there wasn't any like how is that legal? That's not what you're allowed to do, like it was crazy to me. So as of recently, I'm trying to push that even further, like I tend to want my movements to be really smooth, as you can see with most of my animations with my lofty character. And you can overdo the easing in and easing out. But with my latest video, the one I just uploaded this morning, or as the day of this recording, that was the first one that I actually animated at 24 FPS, and I'm trying to animate on twos for some parts and kind of imitate that snappy motion that the Lego Movie does so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What frame rate did you used to, or did you learn on?
Um, so my beginning animations were like 12, and I think at one point I went up to 18, and then I settled on 20, which isn't really a proper frame rate, and I didn't really care. In my mind, I knew that 24 was the standard. I didn't think anything else in between mattered, so I was trying to work up to 24, but then I just got stuck at 20 because every time I tried to push it to 24, I'm like, you know what? It just looks a lot better at 20. So I stayed at 20, and I never really realized that was an issue until I, again, joined the Bricks in Motion for the Lego Movie Rebuilt. I shared one of my clips, and everyone is like, "Oh, the clip's so great! What frame rate did you animate on?" I'm like, "I animated on 20," and then everyone did not like that. Like they were all like, "No, no, you can't do." And I was so mad. I was like, "I'm sorry, guys. I should have read the instructions more carefully." Yeah, I felt really bad, but it worked out because I gave them the 12 FPS and the 24 FPS, and they meshed it together. But at that point, I realized, okay, this is something I should probably consider doing. And then the biggest reason I realized I need to change right now is when I didn't Do you use Premiere Pro to edit your videos?
I don't. I use DaVinci Resolve and HitFilm Express mostly.
I think DaVinci is pretty similar to Premiere Pro, but basically, I learned that Premiere Pro actually has frames, right?
Hmm.
Um, that you can go frame by frame, and they don't have 20 FPS set. You can
Mm,
only do the standard frames. So what that was doing was that was adding frames, like because some frames would actually be held like a split second longer than others, and that has been affecting all of my animations, and I had no idea. And I did bump into problems, and the problems were when I exported it once and then put it back in a second time because I was reusing footage. I started to get these bigger pauses because that multiplied the effect, and I'm like, why are these
yeah.
pauses showing up? And I learned that's because I was animating at 20 FPS and trying to put it in a 24 FPS timeline. And some of my animations really like took a hit. It's very minor, but if you go back and watch some of them, you will see those slight pauses. In some places, it's more than others because again, I exported it and reused it, which multiplied the effect. But yeah, so
Yeah, man.
I am animating it the standards now.
Right on. It's so funny because to somebody who's not familiar with animation, this conversation might not be that like make a lot of sense or be engaging or whatever. But what you're saying, like it like resonates with me so powerfully. And probably a lot of animators who are at our stage or have reached our stage like of experience, because there isn't like when you start doing stop motion as a kid, nobody comes out and tells you like, oh, by the way, there are rules when it comes to frame rates. Um, and I I did the exact same thing, man, with the Lego Zombie Apocalypse season two, actually, with the medieval time travel thing. Um,
Yeah.
at one point, so I was animating that at gosh, what was I animating that at? I think it was 15 frames per second. Um, but then I uploaded it or I put all of the first like the first half of the season together in one big video and I uploaded it. And I in the video project that I uploaded it in was like maybe 24 frames per second. There was some discrepancy between them. And watching it now, or watch like I realized that several years later, I was like, wait a second, this doesn't look right. Because I was watching it, I was like, this seems kind of like chunky. And to my horror, I realized that the whole video, like there are skipped frames, there are mistiming
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
this frame rate issue. And I was like, oh my God, people have been seeing a lesser version of what I created. And it was quite like upsetting to me. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then I did the same thing, like not 20 frames per second, but um I once created a blooper reel for the Lego Zombie Apocalypse with a bunch of the unused audio clips where we were just goofing around, and I animated that. This is when I was kind of deciding that, you know what, I actually do want to animate as a grown man. I want to keep doing this. And so I was like, I'll try 18 frames per second. That sounds like it seems like an upgrade from my regular. But of course, at that point, I wasn't aware that, oh, you don't do that. Nobody does that. It's not supported. Like it's so, it is a learning journey, and the frame rate learning thing is it's a microcosm of its own.
Yeah. Like I'm getting used to doing the animating on twos and ones, and there's a lot of potential in that. Like again, the animation I uploaded today, that was the first animation that I went all the way through with that. So, and I really like how it turned out. So I'm hoping to stick with that and possibly push it further, maybe like twos or fours, because you can get away with those big movements, like it looks good if you do it right.
Yeah. um it absolutely does. I've experimented with twos and ones myself, and it's so useful. One place where I find it useful, um that I can think of immediately is when I have like a character taking a deep breath, maybe the first few frames are just one, or I guess one on ones, or I can't remember, whatever. But like,
Yeah, ones would be 24.
yeah, but then the last few, it's like, where you're kind of reaching the peak or the
Yeah.
shooting down. It just then I bring it down to shooting on twos, and it translates really well to visual.
Yeah, it's a great way to ease in and ease out for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, because trying to animate slow movement with 24 frames, gosh, that's a whole
It takes forever, and that's what I would do because again, I like to ease in and out more than I need to,
thing.
and I didn't before I tried doing that on twos forever, but it speeds it up, and I think it makes it look better too because kind of connecting back to camera movement, you could say the same about the smoothness of it. There's a lot more room for mistakes if you're going to take all those frames versus the on twos, which could look better if you do it right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Trying to do slow motions at high frame rates often leads to shaky look because it's just impossible. Um,
Yeah.
Not impossible, but very difficult to pull off. Yeah, I it's just to kind of switch gears a little bit. I just want to talk a little bit about a few of your videos because I've been kind of going through your library, and some of them stand out to me in a significant way. Uh, you have some hilarious lines, dude. And the voice acting and the deliveries are so freaking funny. Like
Thank you.
Professor Smecklestone in the Temple of Terror. No, that one was great. I just love that one. But the one I'm thinking of is the time travel one.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Slightly more recent, but it's this incredible execution of a very, in some ways, a very simple concept, but played out beautifully in a way that you just you have to see it through to the end to like to get the satisfaction of like, oh,
Yeah.
how does this
I
connect?
yeah, I can't take credit for writing that video though because I
Oh,
had a friend who came to me and he's like, "Hey, you should animate this." And he gave me the whole script. So I can't take credit for that. I did come up with the dialogue though, like for the most part. So like he's actually the one who voiced the scientist.
okay.
Yeah, so
In
he's the one who came up with it. I would love to claim that credit, but yeah, I'm not
oh,
that. I don't get that deep with it. So.
well, it was a great collaboration, and I got to say, one of the lines that that's the thing. Your videos actually, I have laughed out loud quite a few times at some of the scenes, and one of the
I'm so happy to hear that.
yeah, man, one of the pieces of dialogue that just made me laugh was when the scientist is like, "All right, we're ready for you," but then he gets like a phone call or something, and you just
Yeah,
hear him in the background. He's like, "Oh no, 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 he's a very dispensable individual," and I was just like, "That's hilarious."
yeah. I liked. I had to choose like because there were so many funny things. The implication is always funny, like implying what was said on the other end of the phone, and
Yeah.
just so I knew there was a lot of room for jokes there. And as he's walking off, yeah, I like that part. I can't really say that because it's my own animation, but I'm glad you like it. It was funny.
Oh yeah, dude,
And
absolutely. I also a few of the other ones I know I that like stuck out to me. Dr. Ware and the Incredible Fartus. That was hysterical. The voice acting to that was amazing. Um,
yeah,
just so
yeah,
sad.
so that was Mr. Alias. So that was a fun video to make because that was when I was getting like sponsors, right? So it's actually funny because I was sitting down building this and my like my family was there and I was talking to them about it. I'm like, okay, guys, I need a video idea for this. Because at that point, when they give me a kit, I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. I got to think of something
Mm,
that think of an animation to go with it. So we're trying to brainstorm ideas. And I was being silly when I said, because when I saw the phone booth, I barely know anything about TARDIS and all of that.
yeah.
But I mentioned something about the phone booth and then someone said it was TARDIS, like because that's what it made me think of is that teleporting box. And I just like shot that idea out there. I'm like, what if we make this spoof? And it was a complete like I was totally not thinking I would do that, but then everyone was like, yeah, that'd be so funny. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it because I did not think I was going to go in that direction. And then when I did decide to go in that direction, um, I like trying to bring in new voice actors because I feel like it adds a lot more to the animation to have unique voice actors for each role. So I asked him because he commented on my Captain Guy collab video saying
Mm,
I'll voice act for anyone, and that caught my curiosity. I'm like, okay, is he actually good? And I went and checked out his channel. I'm like, oh heck yeah, this guy's awesome.
mhm.
So and then he asked if he wanted to get on a call. So I got on a call with him to kind of talk about it. and he actually helped me develop the story a little bit. Like I told him what I wanted. I wanted the Fardus to be, um, you know, I need to show Fardus, I need to show the clock tower, I need to show the train station. So I told him I wanted it to somehow travel to the train station, and he helped me kind of develop that script, which was really great. And he came up with so many of his own lines. Like his lines were so great. Um, that's one thing I like to do. And I told him this. I tell almost any voice actor this. I'm like, here's the script, but go off script if you can. Like if
Hmm.
you don't think you would say it quite like that, even if it's a slight modification, say it how you would say it, you know? And then the voice actors, they'll give me all these options, and it's really great because I can pick the best ones that'll fit, and it makes the animation so much better, like to
Yeah.
have that kind of additions.
Yeah, it makes it a more organic feel,
Yeah,
often, and that's where some of the real gold just comes in spontaneously. Um, and that actually, I mean, you mentioned the sponsorship. I kind of want to talk about that because it's something I noticed about your videos that really
yeah,
is amazing. Is that many of them involve a sponsorship, and in in such a seamless way where you're entertained the whole time, and it's almost like you're like, oh, this is like something I could buy. This is an ad of sorts. Um,
yeah.
and
Like
I
some of the kits I can really recommend, but others um are okay. Like continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut it like that.
all good, man. I want to hear your spontaneous thoughts too, but I just wanted to uh hear more from you about like how, gosh, how like your how do I want to go about this? I feel like with brick filming, it's an interesting route to try to make stop motion animation, and also like be uh, grow as an entrepreneur, and like how can I do this thing I love and make some income from it, or and maybe not even um like income, but well, yeah, income, some kind of like growth, something that can keep this going, and growing over time. And I think, I can't say for certain, but in some ways, and you have this with all sponsorships of any channel, like people will look at it and they'll be like, boo, like you're selling out.
Yeah,
When in reality, like in some ways, the dream is just to be good enough to sell out, not sell your creative essence because
yeah.
you've done that. But I'm just curious if you have any like tips or thoughts or reflections on the kind of entrepreneurial aspect of brick filming.
Yeah, so when I first got the first sponsor email, first of all, I thought it was a scam. It seemed very much like a scam
There
because
are
they're
a lot
like,
of
"Well,
scams. They are out there.
yeah, I mean, you got to be careful." So always be aware of that. But I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I showed my mom because she's always really good about being able to tell if something's a scam or not. And then I went and searched and saw that other people were making videos about it. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. The worst that can happen is they get my address, and like that's bad. But what are they gonna do? So actually, I think I took it a step further. I sent it to like the work address, so I would
Hmm.
get it from work. So they didn't even have my real address. But then I was blown away when it actually came in because I'm like, whoa, they actually sent it. And I was thinking it was incredible. They weren't paying me. They were just giving me this kit, which was a log cabin kit.
Mhm.
And they said, make a video reviewing it. They gave me like no instruction past that. They're like, just make a video reviewing that. So I did. If you've seen my log cabin review, it was just a short little opener for stop motion because I wanted to include stop motion in all my videos, but then I went into a more review of it.
Hmm.
And so Funhole was the name of the company who was originally doing that, which is a horrible name, but what it's supposed to mean is the whole fun of both day and night, which is also not great.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's not great, but
Yeah.
it's anyway,
This
they
video is
start
not sponsored by
after what?
I said this video is not sponsored by Funhole.
Yes, no, this this is definitely not sponsored by phone. No. But anyway, they after I made my first video, they started sending me all sorts of stuff, like because they're like, oh, he'll actually do it. So, because I think a lot of people probably get the kit and don't do it. But then after a while, two things. First of all, I wasn't happy with the videos, because those weren't stop motion heavy. It was just a short little skit in the beginning, and then it was an actual review. And I wasn't super happy with them, but also I realized they were not getting a lot of views, and they didn't get as much hate as it could have. Like people were saying they were still good. I have a lot of really great community, but
Mhm.
for myself, I just wasn't happy with the content I was making for that. And then so I slowly started to move towards more animation heavy, and then at the end, oh, by the way, this was sponsored, like, and then that's it, which is more of what I probably should have been doing in the first place. And I wasn't sure if they would like that, but they kept sending me stuff, so I guess they liked it. And then I kind of started chipping away from the sponsored section little by little because they weren't telling me I couldn't. Again, they gave me no supervision. They just said, "Hey, here's a kit that tell people about it." So,
Yeah.
and then there was one company who started paying me, which would, and at that point I realized, okay, if they're willing to pay me this much money for a video, like, because I made the video and it was the Lofty's house tour was the first video, and I put everything I got into that because I'm like, if they're gonna like pay me, this is huge. It was, I mean, it wasn't a whole lot, but it was something, like that's actually something. And at that point, I realized I don't need to be accepting gifted reviews anymore because I have plenty of bricks. Because my thought was I could use them for set pieces, but I have plenty of bricks. I have plenty of my own animations that I will never get to because everyone's asking me to review their kit. So it was really painful, but I kind of started saying no because I just feel like, it was becoming forced.
Mm.
So when I get it, when I choose to accept them, I try to be as fun as I can. And I got lucky with the artist one, they were wanting me to do two videos, one for the clock tower and one for the train station. But I'm like, hey, how about I do one video and include both of them? And I was really sure they wouldn't do that, but then they come back and they're like, yeah, heck yeah, do that. And which was great because I got two kits for one video. So yeah. And um fast forward to the present, I'm still get an email every once in a while asking to review a kit, but um I think I'd rather work on my own projects. And because I have less time now than I did. I had a lot of time at that point, so I could just do them. But it's a lot to commit to, because once I say yes, I got to get the kit, I got to build it, I got to think through a script that goes with the kit,
Mhm.
and I got to make it entertaining enough to people will watch it. I want to keep a certain standard. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's clearly like you've taken those opportunities to grow as a storyteller and a filmmaker and even like a voice actor, I would say. I mean, just like you really do put your all into them and you're so authentic about it. It like in a way you get away with it. Like when I was watching your sponsored videos, I didn't feel like it was a rug pull or anything. I was like, that's hilarious. And it's almost like you got me in a funny way. It's like, I see. Yeah, it's a set that you can buy. That's funny. Especially, dude,
Yeah.
Lofty's house tour was absolutely hysterical. Like the
Oh,
dynamic
thank you so much.
between the characters. I was like, this is freaking hilarious. And it's like so watchable. And then it's just like it happens to be like
Yeah.
it's sponsored, It's
I
so
had so much fun with that video. So
yeah.
one thing is I really liked that kit. Like it was really cool and I was able to get a lot of set pieces with it. But I've wanted to do a collab for a long time. So I don't know if you know this, but all three of those characters, they are sig figs from other people's channels. Yeah, so for people who are familiar with those channels, it was really cool to have that kind of collab feel. And it's something I've always wanted to do, and when they sent me that kit, I was like, hey, this is a good chance to do it. Like I came up with that idea at work, when I'm working, I'm just thinking through it and it just kind of comes and I'm like, you know what? Here's what should happen because this way I can show the whole house and it would be funny, and I like playing myself as an arrogant jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, the people participating in the Cool Lab, they added so much to it because I went to them. I'm like, hey, modify these lines. This is the script, but feel free to change them. Also, add your own lines. You can see from the script what it's going to be about. Add whatever you want. And we got so many good lines from that. Like, Nonstop was the stormtrooper. He was so funny. He's like, I'm going to steal the Slater. And I'm like, oh, I'm totally adding that line. Because they give me these big audio files of all these lines, and it's so fun to search through them and kind of think about what I'm going to use. And it just worked out so well. And yeah, it was that's probably one of my favorite videos. I kind of wish it did better, but again, that goes for more of a niche audience because it caters to more to smaller brick filmers who are familiar with those kind of people, you know. Like my brother, he said he didn't like it as much. Like he's allowed to be critical of them, right? So he's like, I'd rather you do something like the Star Wars one, or something that appeals to more people. But I love that video. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's the pain of the artist, isn't it? Is that like the temptation to bend to mass appeal is
Yeah,
strong.
yeah.
Um, and actually, I'm curious. Maybe this video, it sounds like it might be the answer, but maybe there's a different one. Are there any of your animations or films that, to you, are like gold, but they just didn't get the recognition that you would have liked them to? You're like, this is my thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. First of all, I would consider this to be one of them. Although, again, it got it. I mean, I think you kind of forget how many people, like 3,000 people. That's a lot of views. Like, I don't want to sneeze at that, But um, one video that I kind of wish did better was my original Smecklestone video. So how to open an ancient vault. That one.
Mm.
That one is one of my favorites. I was really happy with it, and I made that during Brawl actually one year, or the one year I entered Brawl. I was just working on the animation, and I noticed the tile piece. Have you seen that one?
Actually, admittedly, I have not seen that one. That one,
Okay, well, you got to go watch it because
I
it's
do.
great. But anyway, there was just this one tile piece that I saw, and I was just staring at it and thinking about how you could interpret that tile piece, and then this whole animation came in my head. I'm like, this is really stupid, but I really have to animate this. So after Brawl, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make this, and that was one of the first animations that I really started to try to put some time into set design. I was really happy with the way the
Mm.
set came together through that. But yeah, it never got as much attention as I was hoping it would. So as far as a hidden gem, I would say that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, man. I mean, and it's sad because like so many brick films, there are a lot of brick films out there that are masterworks and they have like 2,000 views,
Yes,
or
yes.
less.
And that breaks my heart to see such a you can tell how much time has been put into it, and then it just has like no views, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if something happened, if it like the algorithm is to blame, because I feel like in a different era that wouldn't have happened. Like
Yeah,
it seems like there was a big shift where suddenly the only brick films getting major views like were like in some ways IP brick films or some that maybe like just struck a chord just right with viewers and the algorithm, and those became really big. But uh it's not easy to get seen and to get regular viewers as a stop motion animator, and it just takes
yeah,
time to make the content, of course. But
yeah,
people have heard me complain about that before. It's not, it's
yeah. It's
fair.
the bane of brick filming.
Indeed.
Just whether to go with the algorithm likes or do what you want and like create something real, you
Yeah.
know. And not to say that they're all videos that please the algorithm are bad, like I
No.
tend to not make IP brick films just because I like to be original, not because I I don't know. I like being original as I can, but I probably would get better views if I made more like Star Wars kind of stuff, all that. But yeah, again, this conversation has been had countless times with just the bane of brick filmers.
Yeah, yeah. But it go like about original videos. Captain Guy, is he your own creation?
He is, yes, he is completely original. And I struggled with the creation of him for a while, and I don't like how similar he is to Captain Underpants. Because,
Oh my.
again, yeah, I mean, it is Captain, and he does act similar. So that is a fail on my part because I wanted an original superhero when I was very thoughtful about creating his character. So I was going to go with Super Guy, right? But
Mm,
technically, I looked up Super Guy, and there was literally a super guy who looked very similar, like he had a red suit,
mm.
and I was like, this is not even fair. Like I came up with that. How? I mean, super guy isn't super original, but so I'm like, I need something else. What else could I do? So Captain Guy came about, and I just stuck with that, even though it is similar to Captain Underpants, which was a fail, but that's fine. I'm sticking with Captain Guy. He is a Loft Studios original character as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I didn't even think of Captain Underpants
All right,
consciously.
that's good.
Subconscious.
That's very good. Yeah.
But I love, again, this is just one line that I have to share that I thought was so funny, where the civilians are pointing up in the sky and they're like, "It's a cloud, it's the sky, it's Captain Guy." Uh,
Oh, I'm so glad you like that because I was so happy with that line, and no one said anything about it. Like I was waiting for a comment to say I like that line, but no one did. So I'm so happy to hear that you like that line. Like I thought it was so funny. Again, I think my own things are funny, which is kind of not what I yeah, but well,
you
thank you. I
they,
like that. I appreciate that.
they say this is something that I think about when I'm writing a script. When you read your script, you should love every line. And I know that's a tall ask, but like you should love your own writing. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Um,
Yeah.
And yeah, with talking about like or going back to our earlier conversation about collaboration, um, how did the whole Captain Guy collaboration come to you? And like what was that process like sending out that video and receiving all the submissions? Because you got a lot of submissions.
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not know what I was getting into. I mean, I was aware of what could happen, so I took all the precautions. Like, I kind of developed a system of how I would handle each entry. But that was an awesome project. I'm so glad I did that. So I got the idea. I'm trying to remember. I was invited to one collab, and I thought it was a really cool idea. Like it was similar, like so everyone had to animate a Spider-Man and then a red Lego brick passing through everyone's animation. And I thought that was so cool to have connecting animations and everyone can do it because it's such an easy, quick thing to do. So I wanted to do my own, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I was trying to think of something that would be kind of unique to my channel and something that people could recreate. And then I thought of Captain Guy. I'm like, I literally made him. He is one of the simplest characters you can make. So, and then when I had that, I was like, okay, well, how is he getting through everyone? And I'm like, you know what? He should be going, yeah, teleporting, what I went with. So that's how I settled on how to do the collab, and I had that kind of in my pocket for a while. And then I finally found the time to launch the project. So I made the announcement video, and then I kind of prepped my setup to edit when entries came in. And literally, I got entries so fast. Like I got an entry like 20 minutes after I posted the video. I'm like, dang. And it was a good entry too. Like, I was so happy. That whole project was amazing. Like to see how many people participated and recreated my character, it was just so cool to see. And I loved every single entry. What I regret is I was considering doing a live stream where I actually watched the
Mm.
whole video, and then because I have something to say about every single one of those entries, and I would have loved to watch it, even though it would have been long. It would, but I never did, and I don't feel like it'd be appropriate now since it's so long ago. But I may do another collab, and I may watch all of them at that point. But it was a lot to keep up with, and my biggest fear was dropping entries, because I got a lot of emails, and I wanted to make sure everyone's got in. And then I realized people were posting them on YouTube and pinging me, like adding me,
Mm.
and assuming that I would find it and use it. Well, I didn't. There were a lot of videos that I didn't that I never said to post it like that. I
Yeah.
said you have to email me. So I mean, it's not I hated and I actually did go and try to find as many as I can, but I hated dropping entries because I didn't find them, you know? Like I had a few comments that said they didn't see theirs, and that made me really sad, you know?
Mhm.
And because I just hate that they would have spent time and expecting their animation, and I just fortunately there weren't too many people who said that. There were a few people who said that I credited them wrong, which was another big fear of mine because I had the, you know, the little handle in the bottom corner. Well, there was a few spots where I duplicated it and
Yeah.
said, and I corrected a lot of those mistakes, but I was aware. I'm like, you know what? I watched through the whole thing, you know, before I uploaded it, but I just I couldn't catch everything because it was so much to deal with. If I did it again, I'd try to develop a slightly better system. But yeah,
Yeah, it's tough when you're working with long video files like that. Like,
yeah,
kind of like typos. If you're writing something, you might make a typo and then you go through and edit it, and your eye, it's like your brain has just like coded it as being right, and your eyes just go over it, and yeah,
yeah.
it's you do your best, and that's all you can do. But yeah, that was an amazing collaboration, and one thing I thought that you did perfectly was your invitation to viewers, um, your invitation video for the collaboration, because not only did you like tell them, hey, this guy's easy to make, here's exactly how you can make him, and here's a resource for like even printing if you want to do that. You show exactly, you literally in that video include a tutorial of how to do the transportation effect. And you give an example. This is just where like I think it just exceeded expectations. You animated two examples of like it doesn't even have to be like that smooth or that over the top. And so you intentionally animated a low quality entry just to show them, hey, like if this is your skill level right now, I still want it. And that was just so inviting. I think that that definitely plays into why you had so much engagement in that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was wanting everyone to join as many people as I could get, like because and I was trying to say like it's not going to take you a lot of time, you know, as you're and but a lot of people put time into it, and I was so happy to see all those entries. Like, and I love the crossover. Like I've always wanted someone else to recreate something of mine, you know. So Captain Guy was the perfect chance to do that because he's easy to recreate. And I'm considering doing a collab where I do the same thing, except it's my Lofty character this time. But the
Mm.
problem with that is he's not a very easy character to recreate because the hair and the torso are not very common pieces, like at all. So everyone couldn't just do that. Recently, someone emailed me and wanted me to voice act for myself in a video, and it made me so happy because they printed the torso for my Lofty character, and I was so happy to see that. It was so cool to see, you know, see my character in someone else's animation. I love that.
Yeah, that is awesome, dude. Are you familiar with Top Trooper Productions? Does that name ring any bells?
Possibly. If I'd be more familiar with an animation, most likely.
Yeah, he did like he actually animated like the Lego Zombie Apocalypse episode like 4.5 or something.
Oh,
He's collaborated with with me with some like Lego Zombie stuff, but he also has his own like kind of universe. And one thing that he did, which I thought was so cool, is at least I think he did this. Actually, I'm gonna have a conversation with him at some point here, and I want to ask him more about it. But I think that like, you know, he has his own fan community. Like these communities kind of build up around brick filmers. Um, and it seems like he has a lot of the characters in his universe are sig figs from fan members and community members, and it is a
yeah,
great way to engage people,
yeah,
and make them just make it such a thrill to watch. So
yeah.
that's
I love that's one of my favorite things to do in brick filming, even though I haven't done it a whole lot, is use people's sig fig. I think everyone should have a sig fig,
yeah.
and I've always wanted to make an even bigger collab. So like take the concept from Lofty's house tour and blow it up, you know, like include everyone in some kind of massive arena or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of did that with the second is it a crime to buy Lego videos?
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if you knew this, but every single character in that audience, every single one of them represented someone's channel. And I spent a lot of time, like mostly looking at my subscribers. Like I would look at their see if they had a sig fig as their icon, click their channel, and if they had like at least two videos where they used their sig fig, I would recreate them and put them in the background. And I was expecting to have to fill in with like my Lost Studios characters or just generic Lego people, but I literally got everyone to be a unique figure, and that was really cool. And I still have a small container just full of all those figures, and I'm gonna keep them built and use them for something at some point.
That's so great, man. And I think you're onto something. Like there is a space to be filled where somebody like really takes this concept to another level, where they take people's sig figs and they animate them interacting in some way that's engaging. I think there's something there, which obviously you've done to some degree, but I think it can be taken to different levels, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
We gotta, there are things I want to get to. Of course, we both picked a brick film that we want to discuss, and I'm excited to discuss those. But before we do that, I just kind of want to ask you a general question that I'm always curious about. And that is kind of, well, it's kind of an open-ended question, but I'm curious about what your dream is in a long-term sense when it comes to brick filming, your vision, uh, and just kind of what it means to you, what it is in your life.
Yeah, that is a very good question. So I this is hard to hear and say, but I don't think there's much of a future as far as career
Mm.
wise for brick filming. It's something I don't think I will ever completely stop. It is something I will probably very soon slow down on, which is really sad because it takes time. And again, it's a hobby. You're not This is hard to hear, but you're not really going to make any money on a stop motion YouTube channel. You're just not. Like even the biggest creators don't.
Mhm.
So I have to kind of remove that as an option because, and again, this is just my opinion. I don't think I could get anywhere with it because I feel like I'm considerably good at stop motion, but and I'm very happy with how much my channel has grown. But you can't make money like that. So career, no. As a hobby, I will always use it as a hobby. Um, but really, I like Lego because it's easy to make stop motion. But I'm actually more into animation versus Lego, if that makes sense. You know, like Lego's a toy to me, so it's while I think it's a great tool for Lego for stop motion, it is just that. You know, like so. Yeah. One thing I've always wanted to try, and I think a lot of people probably want to try this at some point, but have you seen like you've seen storytime animators on YouTube, like big storytime animators? They make money, you know, like I've always wanted to try to create that kind of channel, but
Story
I don't
time,
want to.
is that like the odd ones out kind of style?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's
Oh
like
yeah.
the king and founder of storytime animations, but and that kind of brings back to the concept of how much I love collabs, you know, like every one of those animators has their own character and I just love it when they interact. So I love that I can actually do that with brick filming, you know, like that's why I would love everyone to have their own character. But yeah, so I also am considering trying to see if I could do a few jobs for stop motion. Like I would love it if Lego reached out and like, hey, can you shoot an ad for us? I'd be like, oh heck yeah, I'll do that. Like that would be cool. So as a side gig, possibly, you know, like I feel like if I can learn Blender, see that's the thing. Right now, I can't shoot a professional ad on Stop Motion Studio Pro. So I
Yeah.
need to learn Blender and get a real camera because I'm still using my phone, which it works, but there are problems, mostly flicker problems that I cannot control because of the way the phone hooks up to the app. So, as future aspirations, I'm going to learn like Blender, not Blender, I'm sorry, Dragon Frame with a real camera. I need to because I got a nice camera. I just got to hook that up to Dragon Frame and learn that before I kind of, get a life.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of it's quite the skill building process trying to be an animator and storyteller. There's so many different aspects and you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. It is an interesting transition, I think, for a lot of brick filmers to see, well, like, where does this go now? Like,
Yeah.
where can this go even? Um, but I think it teaches you a lot, and like there are a lot of transferable skills too. Um,
Yeah.
for anything, even writing scripts, being a good writer and being able to tell a story is a skill that will always be useful.
Yeah. And you are incredible at telling a story. Like, I am actually not as good as you would think. I can be silly, I can make people laugh, but as far as an actual story that hooks people's interest and makes people care about characters, that is something I cannot do. I don't think I can really be serious. But you, it's incredible. That's why your series went viral in the first place, is because like I remember when I started watching them, and this is more recently because I was not one of the OG people who would watch them, but when I started watching, I was hooked. Like I was gonna watch just like a little bit, but even though the stop motion wasn't as good as it is now, I was hooked. Like the characters were so good, and I ended up watching the whole thing, and I was like, wow, I did not plan on watching this because I saw 2 hours, and I'm like, I'll just watch the first few minutes to kind of get an idea of what it was. But no, like, yeah, storytelling is not easy, and I am not as good as you would think at telling stories
Mm.
without being silly anyway.
That's really fascinating, man. I wonder, have you ever tried telling stories outside of the medium of Lego, like writing a story that has nothing to do with Lego? Because I'm curious if telling a story with Lego feels like it has to be silly for you. Like it's like, oh, I can't try to get people emotionally invested in this.
Yeah, well, what kind of story? Like a fictional story, that kind of story?
I don't know anything, man. I'm curious.
There
Yeah.
was one series that I always wanted to make, and it was like this huge, really pretentious sci-fi kind of film,
Hmm.
and I had a lot planned out, but at the time I was just wanting cool characters and cool fighting scenes. I wasn't really thinking about a whole lot of character development. I was just more concerned about creating the story world. And this was before I really got into Lego. I was more into mega constructs, and my plan was to just use the figures and create cardboard vehicles for them. So it would be more along those lines. And that wasn't supposed to be silly. That was supposed to be like a
An epic.
something that you would get invested in, because I've always wanted to have people care about a character. And that's what I said when I wanted to make that series was I want someone to be mad when I kill off a character, like I want to get people attached. So, but I just never did it. And I don't know why I drifted away from telling that story. I think one thing is there wasn't a lot there, and because again, I had all these cool vehicles and battles in mind and characters like I there was the beings called like the Titran, and they were super soldiers, basically just super soldiers, and they were the leaders of these armies. But that's about as far as I got. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted it to be like, you know what? I did kind of have a story, and I wanted it to be there was this big overlord who was this really powerful being, and so it's like red versus blue is kind of what it was, but in a more serious tone. And the idea was he was the one who was manipulating both sides to fight each other, and I didn't know exactly where I wanted that to go, whether he needed them to will each other down to where he would come in and take them out, or if it was more like he was in complete control and he was doing it for mere pleasure of war. So that's as far as close as I ever got to coming up with a real story, but I kind of dropped that and just never continued that.
It's really, really cool and interesting to hear. Like, I suspect a lot of people have stuff like that. I don't know
Yeah.
because, maybe I tend to be more drawn or interact more with like people who have creative instincts to begin with. I just had a meeting with a guy recently who's interested in voice acting for the sequel film, and he's also he works as a filmographer or videographer for a news station. But he was telling me about his ideas for these stories that he feels like in some ways compelled to write, but also like there's something that he just doesn't. He's like, that's not something I can do right now or whatever. There's always an excuse. But I think so many people have that have something like some deep lore. And I think we all did it as kids, you know, when we played with little
Yeah,
figures, we just came
yeah,
up with these crazy stories. And that's really what I think, what I suspect drives me, you know. And when I was in middle school, I found a medium, and that medium was stop motion brick filming. Um, and you know, I really appreciate what you said about um, my original series, because it's something that has puzzled me, is how my original series, which to me in design and animation and in most elements, it's weaker than my current stuff, but it performed so much better. And you can say, well, the algorithms have shifted and whatever. But you know, those that first series, it was me having fun and just literally running on instinct. Like I was literally just every
yes,
episode, I was sometimes I wouldn't even script it. I would just go, all right, here's let's roll. Um,
absolutely.
and I
Yeah.
think that, you know, that speaks to people sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point. For sure. That's one thing I noticed is the second I start doing anything like when I'm doing it for fun, my stuff turns out great. I make it fast.
Hmm.
I think it looks great, like whether it be stop motion or some kind of craft that's not even stop motion. And it's a good product. But the second I start trying to make it a career or a job or something, it kills me. It
Yeah.
doesn't look good. It's forced. It takes me a lot longer, and it doesn't. The product isn't as good. So that's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Between you and me and literally all the viewers, um, when I did my own clip for the Lego Movie Remastered project,
Oh
I
yeah,
was really excited to be a part of that. And I am really excited to be a part of that. I think it's an amazing project. But
it is. Yes.
I was in some ways shocked at how hard it was for me to muster up the enthusiasm to see that project through. Um,
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is a lot. This like feels like work. And it's just like, you know, for so long I've just done exactly what I want to do. I haven't been an employee when it comes to storytelling. Um,
Yeah, and it's also hard because it's not really going to go on your channel. A
mhm.
final product is motivates me a lot. So I can relate to what you're saying. I struggled when I was had to make my scenes because I was like that I this isn't even going to be on my channel. So why am I putting time into this? I eventually got past that because I'm like, you know what, this project is so cool. I want it to be the best it could. And I was planning on only doing one scene, but then I grabbed like a few more, mostly because I wanted to put Easter eggs in it.
Yeah,
But like I put Captain Guy in there. I had fun with that.
yeah, well, that's good.
I was really quick side note. I also put some of your characters in there because I won the figures from the contest. So I'm like, I
Yeah,
gotta put these in there somewhere. So I have the droid. He's amongst the robots when they're all shooting, and then Slade is also in the background of the scene of the Master Builders. So it's just really subtle, but I love doing that.
that's so cool, man. I absolutely, that just tickles
So
me.
now they are officially in the movie.
Immortalized. Wow,
Yes,
that is the
forever.
coolest thing.
I'm so excited for that project. I'm this is a side tangent, but it's going to be so cool, and I'm really flattered that they asked me to voice act Emmett for the trailer. I don't know how much they're actually going to get me to do the for the rest of the movie. I know I'll be doing a little bit in the movie. I would love to do the whole movie, but
Yeah,
I'm flattered that they asked me to do that. But it's such a cool idea, Like I
really.
think it has a lot. I think it could be a huge video. The trailer almost got 100,000 views, and that's yeah. So I'm really excited about that project.
Yeah,
Excited to be a part of it.
yeah. Well, man, we got 10 minutes left of this recording, so I think, or of this Zoom session. I think I want to spend it talking about the benefactor, um,
Okay.
because that was
Oh yes, yes. Is that the first time you've seen that?
it was, and I'm curious, how did you discover it?
It was a Bricks in Motion thing. They do their monthly things where they show best brick films of the month, and I watched through it. I'm like, hey, that's good. I watched it, and I was blown away and outraged at how little views it had. Like that was a masterpiece. It was incredible. I loved it so much. You can't get any more original than that. Like, and the mouth animation was so unique, and that must have taken so long to get just right, and the humor in it, and all the kind of time conflicts where it's like you have the pickup truck pulling the wagon. That was just so funny. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, no, it is really amazing when you see a brick film where every element of it is executed so deliciously. I mean, the one of the first things I noticed was the floors and the ceilings. Like you had some
Yeah,
scenes, including like the main guy's kind of office, where you have a beautiful floor with like snot designs, studs not on top. And then even you can see the ceiling in the shot and it's gorgeous. And I'm like, that is dedication. And I think, I've cheated a lot with not showing the ceiling, but I might have to change that because boy, does it immerse you in the film when you top to bottom are in a Lego world.
that is an interesting point, and one that I've actually, until this moment, never thought about. I don't think I've ever had a roof, but that does have an effect.
It,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is one of the things I noticed. His sets were incredible.
Oh,
So I'll have to think about that. That's interesting. Yeah, because the second you put a roof on it, like you're in the building now.
yeah. It's not a toy set that you're looking down on. You couldn't look down on it because there's a roof.
Because you're That's
It's
such an interesting point.
and I said I think I underplayed the psychological impact for the viewer until this particular video. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But like you said, the sets themselves, like they're on an incredible scale for one. They manage scale so well. Like you feel
Oh yeah.
like you're in a brick built world.
I love when they mix the micro builds
Oh,
with the regular builds. That
that
was
wagon
so good.
shot, like when
What?
the wagon leaves the castle and comes over the hill, I was like, that's
That
freaking
was, yeah,
real.
like you got the mini wagon and then bam, it's a real wagon. It looked so convincing, it
Yeah.
was awesome. And there's, yeah, I've always been a sucker for micro builds. So when I saw that integrated into a stop motion so beautifully, I was like, respect. And
Seriously.
again, I'm very disappointed because that channel, I've never heard of that channel before, but they have some other videos that are great too. And I don't understand. That's what makes me sad, when you have someone who is really talented in making those kind of videos and then the algorithm just doesn't get it,
Yeah.
it's not seen. You got a masterpiece that just doesn't do anything, and that makes me sad.
Yeah. And people know the channel is called Plastic in Motion Studios. And it looks like this is the last video they posted. It was 2 years ago, so I don't know if they're still
Yeah.
going. But that is
Yeah.
something that, it's tough. It's the weird challenge of our generation is that everyone has access to like professional filmmaking tools, basically, but also everyone has access to the internet. And you basically have to be your own marketing team. Like you do everything. And,
Yeah.
most of us have no experience as marketing or as marketers, no education with that, no background. And it's annoying. And in some ways, it's just the cross we do have to bear. But I gotta believe that if you stick with something, you'll just learn and you'll learn how to overcome those barriers. Because there are, you may have to bow down to the algorithm a little bit. But I think you can do that. Like I watch videos that have clickbaity titles and thumbnails, but they're incredible quality content. And to me, it justifies the clickbaitiness. It's like, okay, well, this was an
Yeah.
incredible
You
video.
definitely have to consider doing stuff like that at some point, like, and if the video is great, then it works. If the thumbnail is a little clickbaity, as long as it's not, dishonest. Like
Yeah,
my brother, he's always trying to get me to make my thumbnails more clickbaity, but I really don't like saying anything that's not in the video. It's all got to be in the video somewhere. So that's kind of what I go by.
yeah, and I think like clickbait is in some ways a bad term. We need to come up with better language because I think clickbait implies that it's dishonest, but you can have a kind of sensationalized title and thumbnail that isn't dishonest. It's not, it may be like teasing you a little bit, it may be prodding you a little bit, but you and I think clickbait videos often they'll get good engagement right away, but then they'll kind of die out. Like they might have a high click-through rate, but short watch time. But if you have clickbait that actually engages the audience, those are the videos that actually rise to the top. Um, uh, but a couple other things I wanted to say about this video about the benefactor. Um, the oh gosh, there's actually quite a few things, but I just want to share one of my favorite lines is when the fixer or the guy who like retrieves things, he introduces himself and his son, and like or
Oh
little
yeah, yeah.
little boy is like, "Hi, my name's Timmy," and the guy's like, "Shush," and he like hits
Yes.
him on the head, and it was just so freaking funny.
I know. Like I didn't really hear what the kids said, but I would just thought it was so funny, just like that. That didn't expect that kind of such funny characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the one other thing that I was just like that is absolutely hysterical is when they're sieging the castle or laying siege to the castle, and they put the horse in the catapult and the horse is wearing the helmet, and the horse
Yeah.
just like nods like I'm ready. And I was like, I mean,
It's just so random, but so
so
great.
I know, so kind of Monty Python-esque, but also like it was you got to see it to recognize to understand how funny this scene is, guys.
Yeah. So everyone watching this should go watch it. It is worth your time.
Absolutely.
That's what a quality stop motion looks like, and it is rare. You don't get that every day.
No, and it tugs at I mean good storytelling, but also nostalgia. I mean it feels nostalgic to me. I don't know about you, but in more
Yeah,
ways,
kind of having those classic medieval Lego figures.
yeah, the classic medieval Lego figures, the way the sets are put together, it all strikes at the core, I think. Well, man, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I just want to say thank you so much for being willing to like meet
No
with me again for this
problem.
conversation. It's so much fun for me to talk to other brick filmers.
Yeah, it's rare. I never get to talk to you're the only brick filmer I've ever really talked to, and it's really good to talk to someone else who actually does, what I do, can understand all the terminology and be able to insightfully discuss it. So it's been really nice. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, the pleasure's been all mine, Daniel. Um, you guys check out Loft Studios. He has such great content, and I'm so excited to see what's next.